Hey people, John V again here from PhoneArena. You're watching our video comparison between the Motorola DROID 4 and the Samsung Galaxy Nexus. Both devices are available right now for Verizon Wireless. They have their specific unique characteristics. You have on one hand the DROID 4 with its QWERTY form factor versus the ice cream sandwich powered Samsung Galaxy Nexus. Both are top-notch devices, but we'll find out which one's going to be the better between the two. Well, honestly, it's rather difficult to say which device has the better looking design because they're pretty much conventional looking, nothing really drastic between the two, but the Samsung Galaxy Nexus just edges it out just by a tiny bit just because of its overall clean looks. On one hand, you have the DROID 4 with its angular looks versus the rounded approach of the Galaxy Nexus. The DROID 4 is thicker and heavier than the Galaxy Nexus, but then again, it's warranted with its physical keyboard. And in the back, you have that rubbery textured pattern, which gives it a good grip in the hand for both devices. But overall, we'd have to give the slight advantage to the Galaxy Nexus. Without a doubt, we prefer the display of the Galaxy Nexus just because it's superior in many ways. First of all, resolution. You have QHD on the DROID 4 versus 720p resolution on the Galaxy Nexus. From far away, you don't really notice it, but when you look very close, you can tell the 720p display of the Galaxy Nexus is by far sharper looking. On top of that, it's a Super AMOLED versus a regular LCD display. So with the Galaxy Nexus, it exhibits all the superior things about it, like the saturated color tones, wider viewing angles, and higher contrast, and overall it definitely has the wow factor to it. The dedicated power button on the Galaxy Nexus is more pronounced, and on top of that, a better response too over the DROID 4. At the same time, we could say the same thing about their volume controls. The Galaxy Nexus just has a more pronounced feel versus the flat feel of the DROID 4. Mainly reserved for taking self-portraits and doing video chat, they both feature the same 1.3 megapixel front-facing cameras. When it comes to connection ports, the DROID 4 separates it. You have a dedicated micro USB and also micro HDMI out port, whereas the Galaxy Nexus has a single micro USB port, which you could do video out to, but you'll need an MHL adapter for that. In the rear, we find the respective cameras. It's a 8 megapixel camera on the DROID 4 with single LED flash, and the Samsung Galaxy Nexus has a 5 megapixel camera, single LED flash. Both have the ability to shoot 1080p videos. As much as we love the Motorola's customized interface running on top of Android 2.3 Gingerbread on the DROID 4, it really can't quite compare to the most up-to-date experience found with Ice Cream Sandwich on the Galaxy Nexus. It's just a cleaner looking interface, a lot more features too. It makes it also very easy to multitask between applications, which is pretty neat. But at their core, they still have all the personalization aspects that we find with Android as a whole. Honestly, both devices deliver really good performance with the respective processors. It's a dual-core TI OMAP 4430 processor on the DROID 4 versus the TI OMAP 4460 processor on the Galaxy Nexus. They're both coupled with 1GB of RAM, so for most basic things, opening up applications, kinetic scrolling, pretty instantaneous, and we're very happy with it. But when we test them out with live wallpapers, it just seems like the Galaxy Nexus just has a little bit more sluggishness with its operation, whereas the DROID 4 maintains its good responsive nature even with processor-intensive things like the live wallpaper here. It's not terrible per se with the Nexus, but it is noticeable. Seeing that the Galaxy Nexus has the larger display, it makes it a lot easier to type up messages using its on-screen keyboard versus the DROID 4, which is a little bit on the cramped side, but nevertheless you get a really good responsiveness as you're typing up messages. However, you really can't count out the DROID 4 because it offers that exceptional physical keyboard, and you really can't beat something that gives you a physical response. As much as one believe that all 4 GLT devices are made the same, they're actually not, just because in our testing we do find download speeds to be faster on the DROID 4 pretty much all the time versus the Galaxy Nexus. Typically we get data speeds 2 to 3 megabits per second faster on the down with the DROID 4, whereas upload speeds are pretty much constant in both devices, no big change there. As far as the web browsing performance, you could tell that the Galaxy Nexus just has a slightly more fluid look to it, but they handle Flash very well and they're more than usable. When it comes to playing music, the respective music players are very nice looking. A lot of eye candy with their 3D effects in play, but for the most part they're very similar. But the DROID 4 has the ability to actually display the lyrics as the song is playing. As far as the audio quality, they're both very strong at their maximum volume setting, but it just seems like the DROID 4 has a slightly stronger tone. On top, we have the Samsung Galaxy Nexus. In the bottom, we have the Droid 4. They're playing the same exact video, which is encoded in MPEG-4, 1920 by 1080 resolution. You could tell they're moving very fluidly. No slowdown or lag with their playback, but the Samsung Galaxy Nexus is just the preferred choice, just because with its larger display and Super AMOLED panel, it just makes for a very pleasing experience. But the Droid 4 has the ability to actually play even videos encoded in DivX and XVID, which isn't available out of the box with the Galaxy Nexus. Of course, having a higher megapixel count camera doesn't necessarily translate to the better looking photos, and it's quite indicative here, as the Galaxy Nexus seems to produce the better looking shots with its 5 megapixel camera versus the 8 megapixel camera on the Droid 4. The biggest differentiator here has to be the color production. It's a lot more natural looking on the Galaxy Nexus, where the Droid 4 a little bit on the purplish side. You could tell here with the reds, but details are pretty much the same. Sometimes they could be indistinct, but slight advantage with macro shots goes to the Galaxy Nexus. And also in low lighting conditions, the Galaxy Nexus appears to have also a slight advantage, just because with its LED flash it seems more potent. At the same time, we could say also that the Galaxy Nexus is the preferred handset to go with for shooting 1080p videos, just because overall its quality is a lot more appealing to the eyes. Even though it shoots slower at 24 frames per second, which translates to some choppiness a little bit when you move very quickly, it's still the better looking between the two, with its natural color production and clear audio recording. With the Droid 4, it just suffers from some poor looking colors, poor details, and some distorted audio recording. All around, we have to say that the Droid 4 is the device to go with for making voice phone calls, just because its call quality is very pleasant, as we're agreed, with distinctive, clear voices on both ends of the line, and its speakerphone is very strong with its output, whereas the Galaxy Nexus, it has very low, weak tones with its speakerphone, and our callers did say that our voice sounds a little bit on the robotic side. Even though it doesn't happen as much as before, we still find the Galaxy Nexus dropping 4G LTE connectivity, whereas the Droid 4, it's not much of a problem. Neither device is captivating when it comes to battery performance, just because full charges, we managed to get 10 hours of normal usage out of both devices, so it's rather poor when you compare it to some other devices out there. Nevertheless, you're going to still find yourself charging these two devices as much as you can. Ultimately, it's the fresh appeal of the Galaxy Nexus that continues to win us over versus the Droid 4. Droid 4 isn't bad. Of course, it improves upon the fantastic keyboard from its predecessor, and now it has 4G LTE connectivity. But besides that, the customized interface that it has on here is the same exact one found on the Droid 3 from last year. So it's not quite as new or appealing, whereas the Galaxy Nexus has a beautiful looking display, takes the better photos and videos, and of course you get the most up-to-date Android experience with Ice Cream Sandwich, giving it a really clean look, and overall it's the more tantalizing device between the two, even though it's priced at $100 more at $300 with the 2-year contract versus $200 with the Droid 4. So if you'd like to learn more about both devices, you can check out our website, guys, PhoneArena.com. This is John V. Thanks for watching.